So US President Joe Biden has signed legislation creating a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the country. The Senate on Tuesday passed the bill under a unanimous consent agreement that expedited the process. And then a vote in the House of Representatives on Wednesday was overwhelming, passing with 415 votes in support, with just 14 Republicans voting against the measure. Joining us now is Jacklyn Cole, who is the Public Affairs Officer at the US Consulate in Durban. She joins us now. A very good evening to you, Jacklyn. Thanks indeed for your time. So how significant is this decision by President Joe Biden signing this law making Juneteenth a federal holiday?
I think it's a very important decision. For folks who are like myself, who have family from Texas, we've been celebrating this holiday for generations. But for many Americans, they're learning about it for the first time, and it's going to give them an opportunity for us to have really important conversations about race and racial equality in the United States.
Quite important that you mentioned that. Do you think this is part of an attempt perhaps to, some others would say, undo the damage that was done during the Trump administration, its behavior towards black people in America, because black people felt that they didn't belong in the United States?
So I think Juneteenth has a history that goes long beyond the last few administrations. And I think what's really important is the opportunity to have and learn about our history and have discourse about what we want to do going forward. As someone who celebrated this my entire life, the thing that I find most important is really understanding how it shows the freedom that we have, but the progress that we still need to make.
And when you talk about that progress, we've seen, of course, the protests in the United States against police brutality, the treatment of black Americans by law enforcement authorities there. It's all good and well, I guess some would say, to have these days declared holidays. But in practical terms, and as someone who says that they have family in places like Texas, what change does it offer? Americans believe there must be some kind of systematic change, like to the justice system, where they say it's been unkind towards black Americans. How do you change the systematic suffering that is entrenched?
So I think it's not one or the other. We can celebrate this holiday while we continue to have important conversations about voting rights, about healthcare in the United States, about education. This is the wonderful thing about being in a democracy like the United States or South Africa. Everyone has a voice. And so there are people in the political system as well as civil society who are speaking strongly about these issues and will continue to push for the issues that they think should be taking place to move us forward.
What kind of conversations do you think you should be having as, I guess, black Americans in this instance? Because over the past, I would say here, we've seen quite a lot of what has been throughout the world where, black Americans have said they don't believe that America is for them. There is a new administration now. What conversations do you believe should be taking place? We've seen them start, but what would lead towards that systematic change that black Americans feel has been so entrenched that nothing has changed, and that America has not been for them?
So I think there has been progress. Obviously, the country that we lived in during my grandfather's time when he served in World War II was a different country that my father grew up in segregated South, is different than the one that I have grown up in, and hopefully will be different than the one that my children grew up in. So I don't want to take away the progress that we've made, mostly because it has been hard-fought freedoms by African Americans. And so I think we need to look at that, look at those lessons learned, and then move forward, whether it's through civil activism, political participation, voting. All of those measures need to be taken, and not just by African Americans, but it needs to be groups, coalitions of interested parties. And honestly, not just Americans. Often the changes that we see in democracies like ours in South Africa came when there was pressure from international partners as well. These issues transcend boundaries, they transcend countries. And so we need to look at them not only as civil rights, but human rights that affect all of us.
And seemingly with what has happened now in the United States with this declaration of this holiday, a step in the right direction.
I think definitely it starts a conversation. I've had conversations with colleagues who didn't know what this holiday was. And it opens up a conversation about, talking about not just slavery in the United States, but Jim Crow, segregation, and things that we see to this day. And so discourse is the first step, but it is only the first step. As you said, there's more that needs to be done. And I think that this gives us an annual date every year to bring this conversation back up. And for those who have celebrated it, it's always been a holiday of this type. We have celebrated what we have gone through, but we always look towards the future about what needs to be done so that we can see true equality. And hopefully that will be how it is celebrated from this day forth.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate in Durban, Jacklyn Cole. Thanks for joining us on the programme on SABC News.